What happens after the final breath? Does the self dissolve into the void or cross portals beyond human understanding? Welcome, traveling soul, to the mystery of mysteries. Today, we dive into one of the most profound and enigmatic texts of Tibetan Buddhism, the Bardo Thodol, known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Imagine a guide that accompanies you through the deepest and most mysterious moments of existence. That is the role of the Bardo Thodol. And no, it's not just a simple manual about the end of life. It's a map, a spiritual guide for what happens right after death. Prepare yourself, for together we will cross this portal, unravel its messages, and perhaps understand a little more about what it means to exist. The Bardo Thodol was created by PADMASAMBHAVA, a legendary and almost mythical figure of Tibetan Buddhism. Born in India, he is widely recognized as the one who brought Buddhism to Tibet in the 8th century. In Tibetan tradition, he is revered as Guru Rinpoche, which means precious master. But PADMASAMBHAVA was not just a monk. He was a profoundly deep spiritual master, a yogi who mastered mystical techniques and esoteric teachings. The Bardo Thodol was born from this master as desire to guide not only the living, but also the dead, offering them a path to liberation even after the final breath. From a young age, PADMASAMBHAVA demonstrated extraordinary mystical abilities. Recognized as a Mahasiddha, a being who attained extreme spiritual realization, developing powers or siddhis considered miraculous. He was invited to Tibet by King Trisong Detsen, who sought to expand Buddhism and spiritually strengthen the country by unifying its people under one system of beliefs. At that time, Tibet was a place of intense shamanic practices and animist beliefs deeply rooted in the indigenous Bon religion. This spiritually diverse and even chaotic atmosphere presented challenges to the spread of Buddhism. Upon arriving in Tibet, PADMASAMBHAVA faced resistance from various cultural and spiritual forces. The local deities and spirits of the Bon traditions resisted Buddhism, and PADMASAMBHAVA used his knowledge of tantric magic and rituals to tame these spirits. This integration of Bon deities and practices into Tibetan Buddhism was crucial to establishing a lasting spiritual foundation. Thus, PADMASAMBHAVA founded Tibet's first Buddhist monastery, Sami Monastery, and began transmitting profound teachings about the mind, reality, and the cycle of existence known as samsara. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is the understanding that death is not the end, but a transitional state, a moment of openness to the possibility of spiritual liberation. PADMASAMBHAVA understood that at the moment of death, the mind enters a special state where, free from the distractions of the physical body, it becomes more receptive to ultimate truth. He realized that this was a unique opportunity for liberation, but he also knew that most people, when dying, get lost in illusions and fears that keep them away from this possibility. His mission was to create a guide that could be recited by those accompanying the dying, or even studied in life, so that the mind would be prepared for the bardos, the transitional states after death. In essence, he wanted to relieve suffering and open doors to enlightenment, even when everything seems uncertain and dissolving. This compassion is the foundation of the Bardo Thodol. He also knew that many might not attain enlightenment in life, but he saw death as a final opportunity, and so he offered instructions to practitioners and disciples to recognize the clear light, the pure manifestation of the mind at the moment of death. The Bardo Thodol guides us through three main states or bardos that every soul passes through. The Bardo Chikhai, the moment of death. In Bardo Chikhai, the soul experiences the very moment of death, a transition point where the physical body dissolves and consciousness is freed from its material limitations. Once dissolution is complete, the soul finds itself before the clear primordial light, described in the Bardo Thodol as a dazzling, pure, immense light. The clear light is the manifestation of the absolute nature of the mind, a state of pure and unconditional consciousness where there is no duality, fear, or attachment. Some know it as the higher self, others as the solar mind. There are many names for this state of totality and infinite peace. For the spiritual practitioner, Bardo Chikhai offers the possibility of final liberation. If the soul can recognize the clear light as part of its essence, it achieves instant liberation, nirvana, and there is no need to pass through the other bardos. This recognition does not depend on rituals or doctrines. It is a direct and complete experience of the truth, where the mind sees itself without filters or distortions. In that moment, all conditioning, karma, and identities dissolve. On the other hand, for those unprepared, the intensity of the clear light can be frightening. Instead of recognizing the light as its true nature, the mind may interpret it as a threat due to fear or attachment to what is familiar, and enters the next stages of the bardos, where it faces increasingly distorted and limiting visions according to its karmic tendencies. In this case, the soul retreats, missing the chance for liberation. Next comes Bardo Chönyid, the Bardo of visions. As Carl Gustav Jung once said, gods and demons are projections of the unconscious, powerful and inevitable until understood as parts of ourselves. In Bardo Chönyid, the soul finds itself in a state of consciousness stripped of its physical body and inside a dimension where tangible limits no longer exist. Here, the soul experiences projections of its own mind, projections that may appear as angelic forms or disturbing, frightening visions. This Bardo reveals the essence of the mind, where everything repressed, desired, or feared emerges intensified. Visions in Bardo Chönyid directly reflect the emotional and karmic states accumulated by the soul during life. They manifest in two distinct forms: peaceful visions and wrathful visions. In the peaceful vision stage, the soul is initially greeted by peaceful deities representing illuminated, benevolent aspects of consciousness. These figures may appear as Buddhas, bodhisattvas, or beings of light, emanating the positive qualities cultivated by the soul. Peaceful visions have a serene presence and offer a sense of peace. An essential nature of the initial visions, it is gradually confronted by more intense visions known as wrathful deities. However, for the unprepared mind, these visions can be overwhelming or incomprehensible, causing the soul to retreat and doubt the reality of the experience. But expressions of the mind itself, reflections of the passions and attachments that still bind the soul to the cycle of suffering. In the wrathful vision stage, if the soul does not recognize the peaceful, these figures are manifestations of anger, fear, and repressed desires, assuming monstrous and disturbing forms. It is important to understand that these wrathful deities are not external or malevolent entities. Bardo Chönyid is described as a state where the mind is free from physical limitations, a pure state of psychic manifestation where everything is amplified. The visions that arise resemble dreams, but unlike ordinary dreams, they carry a striking clarity and vividness. This happens because the mind, now free from the body, experiences its inner energies unfiltered. Everything repressed and accumulated emerges with almost tangible intensity. These visions are considered opportunities for learning and enlightenment, as each represents an aspect of the self that needs integration or transcendence. Those who maintain full awareness during this Bardo can perceive that all these visions, good and bad, peaceful and wrathful, are mere creations of the mind. Recognizing this truth allows the soul to dissolve fear and achieve liberation. At this stage, the Bardo Thodol advises the soul to focus on the clear light, the primordial essence of the mind, described as a vast and pure radiance. Recognizing the clear light is the key to total liberation, for it represents the innate nature of all beings. It is the sun amidst the clouds of visions, the light that remains unchanged despite all mental projections. If the soul can see through the visions, it can attain enlightenment and transcend the cycle of rebirth. However, recognizing the clear light is not easy for the common mind. For most beings, the visions are so real and full of personal meaning that it becomes a challenge to see beyond them. For this reason, the Bardo Thodol suggests that spiritual practitioners train in life to detach from illusions and contemplate the nature of the mind. With this practice, even when faced with the intense visions of Bardo Chönyid, they will be able to focus on the clear light and find peace. Fear and attachment are the greatest barriers to liberation. The intensity of the visions can provoke deep fear, especially the wrathful deities, which represent untamed aspects of the psyche. This fear creates a sense of separation, preventing the soul from recognizing the visions as parts of itself. The soul may want to flee from these visions, or, through attachment, fixate on some of them, especially the peaceful visions, which keeps it bound to the samsara cycle. To overcome this cycle, the soul must recognize the visions as empty of their own reality. In Tibetan Buddhism, this concept is known as shunyata, or emptiness. The mind that remembers emptiness during Bardo Chönyid can observe all visions but remain detached, understanding them as mere temporary expressions of its own nature. The experience of Bardo Chönyid, therefore, is not a punishment or purposeless suffering. It is a phase of revelation where the soul confronts the mirror of its own mind. It is a test that distinguishes those ready for liberation from those who still need rebirth to deepen their learning. Finally comes Bardo Sidpa, rebirth. In Bardo Sidpa, the final stage, the soul faces a crucial moment, the choice of its next body, determined by the energy accumulated from all actions, thoughts, and intentions, what we call karma. It's as if the entire previous journey led to this point, where what we carry inside determines our next destination. Upon entering this Bardo, the soul has already experienced dissolution in Bardo Chikhai and faced its own projections and illusions in Bardo Chönyid. Now, it finds itself in a state of greater psychic density, where the desire to be reborn intensifies, driven by fears and attachments that have not yet been overcome. This desire, as Tibetan Buddhism teaches, is what compels the soul to seek a new body, a new form of existence. In Bardo Sidpa, consciousness is influenced by karmic tendencies, which act as subtle marks left by past lives. These marks function as magnetic forces, attracting the soul to circumstances and experiences that reflect its inner state. During Bardo Sidpa, the soul experiences a series of visions associated with the process of rebirth. These visions often include images of couples in union, a metaphor for the creation of a new life. Here, the soul is called to choose a new body, unconsciously guided by emotional tendencies and karmic impulses. And attachments recognize these visions as manifestations of their own mind, ephemeral and empty in nature. In many descriptions, the Bardo Thodol suggests that upon seeing these images, the soul should maintain a state of detachment and lucidity. Only then can it avoid being blindly drawn to an undesirable rebirth. For those who manage to remain calm and detached, Bardo Sidpa offers a final chance for transcendence. This is the goal of the spiritual practitioner. Instead of being reborn under the influence of illusions, the Book of the Dead is not just a religious text or a compendium of esoteric beliefs. It is a tool of self-knowledge, a mirror for our mind, and a map for our destiny. It teaches us that death is the great period of the human story, but also the portal to new beginnings. Perhaps by contemplating these teachings, we can not only prepare for death, but also learn to truly live. If this journey into the unknown resonated with you, share this video and subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comments what intrigues you most about life after death, for the path of self-knowledge is long, and together we can explore the greatest mysteries of existence. Thank you for watching.